Hi scrapbook friends, it's Nicole and I'm back with another Halloween border. Now if you watched my previous video, you know that I showed two pretty simple videos, the ghosts and the candy corn, and I wanted to show this one that is quite a bit more elaborate and time consuming. So those are very much beginner videos. This one's going to take a little bit more time, but it's not hard. And I think you can easily put it together with some of the great tools we have right now from Creative Memories. So you're going to need several colors of cardstock. You need gray, black, dark green, leaf green, orange, and goldenrod are the colors that I used. And then you're going to need a whole bunch of tools, and I'm just going to show you those as we go, including both the ovals and the circles from the custom cutting system, the Train Tracks punch, the Campfire punch, the Clouds Border Maker cartridge, and the Songbirds. And of course you could leave the Songbirds out, or if you have a different punch, you know, you could do some other kind of little bird on there. But these are all current Creative Memories products that make up this border. And I did not come up with this all on my own. I did have some advice from some of my other sister CM advisors. I did come up with the cat on my own. I'm pretty proud of him. So, but a lot of these ideas were shared with me by the great Creative Memories Advisor Network. So, all right, here we go. We're going to start with our black cardstock for the base, and it's going to be a 3 by 12 inch base for this border. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that 3 by 12 inch base and set this aside. I'm going to need more of that black to do the birds later. And then the next piece is going to be the background. I chose to do these borders using only cardstock. You're going to cut another 3 by 12 for the gray. You could definitely use, like maybe a Starry Night paper, something like that for your background. I just wanted something that I knew that I had lots of and I could replicate this easily. So you're not going to need more of the gray. The gray are for your background. This is the only piece you're going to need. Then you're going to need, a piece of rich brown. Sorry, you're going to need rich brown too. And that's the one we're going to punch with the Train Tracks punch. I will tell you, I love this Train Tracks punch. I love it as a fence because it is very intricate. It is a little bit tough to punch, and I do have to kind of give it a little bit of oomph when I punch, and it's loud. So just bear with me. So I'm going to start by lining up my paper with this little black line that's on the front, and making sure that the back of my paper is all the way up against this little raised fence area. So I'll put my paper in, punch right down. Now, if it doesn't loosen up, you can see I just kind of had to slam it on the table. Sometimes it wants to not let go of the paper. Now, if you look right here, there's a little point in the leftover piece, and I'm going to line that point up with this little blue point on the wing. And that's how you know how to position this particular punch, because it's all identical. Sometimes it can be really tricky to know exactly which fence post you do next. Oh, look, I wasn't straight. See that? I messed it up. I wasn't straight. I'm going to go ahead and use the back and start over. I guess I wasn't all the way back on the fence. So I'm lining up with the little triangle here, making sure that I'm back all the way against this little raised part. I call it a fence. I don't know what other people call it, but the little raised piece to make sure your paper is lined straight. There you go. That was one that didn't want to let go. All right. So there's my last punch with the Train Tracks, but I think it makes a great little fence. All right, so there's our fence. We can put that right here. And then the next piece that I want to cut is the moon. And for the moon, I used the medium circle and the blue blade on a little scrap of yellow. You don't need a very big piece. So there's my little moon. And then what I chose to do was to put my little fence on first. Now, when you're adhering this, one of the best ways to do it is with the repositionable tape runner. So I have an old case, but you can tell it's the repositionable because it's got the green plastic, and it just dispenses little dots. You can't even see them, but they're really nice for, because anything that is excess, you can just rub off your page. So I like to put a little piece of scratch paper behind to catch all the excess dots. You kind of can mess up your table a little bit by getting this adhesive on it. I know that the tables at my crop venue I'm having trouble getting some of this excess adhesive off. I've heard that you can use like a silicone cutting mat, or even the white power sort dividers that Creative Memory sells. But you see on here, you can just see these little dots of adhesive, and they only stick on here to where the paper is, and all the excess stayed on my little scratch paper. So I'm going to put this down so that's about maybe a ½ an inch from the bottom. And you're going to see that this my punch, and some of them, this one is not necessarily cutting very clean. But for this look, I kind of like that's that rustic. Some of it was me not kind of pushing down with the with enough force. But you can always just trim that off. Of course, if you have one that's really bad, Creative Memory stands by their product and they will refund you. All right, now we're going to take our moon. Same thing. I'm going to use this one repositionable because I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but I'm going to just kind of tuck it behind my fence. I don't want it to go too far down. Like, I don't want it to be clear under here. I want it to be a little bit off the top. That's okay. I'm just going to stick this down. And now I'm going to take my 12-inch trimmer again, and I'm going to swap out and use the wave blade to trim the top. So I'm going to take my straight blade out and use the wave blade. And I like to line up this top edge of my paper with the second dotted line on the cutting mat. That's about a 1/8 of an inch cut. And I'm just going to cut, I'm going to go right over this moon and the fence because I like the way that looked with both of them together. And it's so much easier to cut them together than to try and cut them separately and then line up these little waves. All right, so now I've cut the wave, and it just gives this little bit of interest to that top edge. And you could probably, cut the bottom edge later if you want to with that wave, but I'm not, I think there's enough interest down there at the bottom. And now you're going to stick your background piece onto the base. All right, I think I have my measurements wrong. So I think I actually wanted this to be 2 3/4. So rather than start my video all over, I'm just going to cut right here to the edge of the mat. I'm just going to cut a 1/4 inch off of this because, and there I just did it with the wave, which is not what I meant to do. But now I can stick it down here. It gives me a little bit of a border on both sides. So that's where you start. Apparently I didn't measure right when I was trying to tell you guys how to do it. So apologies for that. Hope you weren't cutting along with me. But you can just trim that off. Now we're going to do the grass using the Cloud cartridge from the Border Maker system. So this is the clouds, and I think it makes cute little grass. And we're going to cut it in 2 colors. We're going to cut it in the leaf green and the dark green. So you fold out your paper guide, lift up on the little magnetic handle or the paper holder, and close the magnet down, fold this out of the way, and then we're just going to punch down our border with the leaf green. And this one I'm going to want to cut at 1/2 inch. So the first thing I want to do is swap out my wave blade and put my straight blade back in, because I want this to be straight. That other mistake I made is fine, because we're going to cover that up. And then I'm going to cut it 1/2 inch. And so for this trimmer, this very first line after the mat is the 1/2 inch mark. And I'm just going to put the fattest part of the little wave border on that 1/2 inch mark. And that's how I'll know that I'm cutting straight, by lining up all those little 1/2 inch circles. So here's my first piece. And then I'm going to take the dark green and do the same thing, but I'm going to cut at the 3/4 inch mark. So I love the Border Maker system because it's just so easy to position it. You don't have to really pay attention. You can just do it by feel. I think I could probably use the Border Maker system blindfolded at this point. And then I'm going to take the dark green and cut it at 3/4 inch. So same thing, the little fattest part of this punch is on the 3/4 inch line. And that's just so that I have that variety in height. You could cut them both the same and then just try to position them yourself, but I found that this was the best measurement for me to make those be offset without anything peeking through the background. Now you're going to want to save at least one piece of this dark green excess from the grass for our pumpkin in a minute. And then we're going to take the green and put a little adhesive on the back. And leave your little, about an eighth of an inch black border on the bottom of that base, so you can see that where I messed up and cut with the wave, you'll never know now, because I've just left that little, about 1/8 of an inch black border. Now you can see with the way that the cloud cartridge is, there's kind of a pattern. And so if you line it up like this, it's exactly the same. So kind of a medium, a small, a big, medium. I don't want to do that. So what I did was I lined these up exactly the same so that the pieces match. And then I put adhesive on this side because I'm going to flip it over. And that way it gives just a little bit of variety. So now that I've got this on here, and like I say, this was the same cut, right? So now when I flip it over, it's going to not line up exactly and give you more variety. So you can see just by flipping it over, it's not exactly matchy-matchy. Sometimes you would want the clouds to line up exactly, but for this grass, I really liked it to be separate. Okay, next we're going to do the pumpkin. And the pumpkin is going to use the oval from the custom cutting system. There are 4 ovals in the custom cutting system. We're going to use the second biggest. All right. So I don't know how to figure out how to label those exactly. And then we're going to use the red blade on the inside, and we're going to cut 3 ovals out of orange cardstock. This would also be something that if you wanted to do with a pattern, you could do this one with a pattern. I think this would be cute with maybe a plaid or a polka dot, some kind of variegated piece could give you some interest rather than just using the solid cardstock if you like. All right, I didn't quite cut those all the way through, but here's my 3 little ovals, and I'm going to put some adhesive on here and line these up so that the bases are about the same. Kind of V it out a little bit if you want. And actually, I didn't quite cut all the way through, so I got a little straggler right there. If you have a piece that's a little bit shaggy where you didn't have that cut, that's a good one to put at the bottom because that's going to hide behind the grass. So it overlaps a little bit in the back. You got your 3 ovals, but that's all you really need. Now take this little piece of green that we cut, and there's this piece on the top that has a little bit wider section. That's what I liked. I just put a little bit of tape on there on that wider section, and I stuck it behind here to be my pumpkin stem. All right, so I've used there's my little pumpkin stem. And now I want a leaf for my pumpkin, and I felt like the fire, the little flame from the campfire punch made a great leaf. So we're gonna punch out a little leaf. From this, actually, I'm gonna punch out another one from the leaf green to also go on there. All right, I didn't come up with anything to use the little logs for, so I'm just gonna get those out of my way. Well, the other thing I did was I used our new dot pen to kind of add some interest to this because I didn't use a pattern paper. So the dot pens are a new thing. Right now we only have 4 colors, but they have a regular fine tip on one side that you can use for journaling, but these dots on the other side are really fun because depending on how hard you press, you can get different sizes of dot. So it can give a really fun effect with those dots, and it's kind of a tone on tone, and I just went around and just put some dots around the edges of my little pumpkin ovals. Hard to see a little bit on the camera, but I think in real life it shows up a little bit, and it just gave it a little bit of extra interest. There you go. Come on, camera. All right, now we're gonna take our campfire piece, and the way I chose to do it was with just this little part. It kind of looks like a little toupee almost. So that gave me this piece on the bottom to adhere my tape, and it doesn't matter if it goes off the edge because you're gonna put it back here. And then I just kind of tucked it behind so that the little leaf was poking out the top. So from the back, it looks like this. Almost looks like a face, doesn't it? But I thought it looked like, oh, come on. Looks like a pumpkin leaf. And so then we're gonna take this again, put some adhesive on here, and I tucked it behind the light green grass just a little bit. You could tuck it behind both grass, but I liked the layered look of tucking it behind and kind of not quite in the center, a little bit off the center, and then just make sure it doesn't poke through the bottom like this. So just kind of line it up so that it's behind this light green, you know, to be there kind of in the pumpkin patch. And then I took the light green leaf and I cut it. I followed this point that's in the middle and I just kind of cut along to this edge. So my pieces are cut like this. And I just tucked those on the side. Again, I tried to find a place right here where I could have room for some adhesive. And these I did tuck behind the green grass a little bit, just so that the leaf is showing, you know, so it looks like a leaf. Just kind of poking out here behind this little pumpkin. All right, so there's our pumpkin with some little leaves coming out. All right, and now we're gonna do the cat. And the cat is a lot of fun, but it is a little bit fiddly, and y'all may think I'm crazy for, you know, spending this much time to make a cat. But for this one, we're going to use the biggest circle. This is a 6-inch circle and the red blade. And this actually is gonna make you 8 cats. So if you're just making one of these, you're gonna have some extra little pieces, but, and you could, again, do this in a different size. This is the size that I found worked for my border. And then I showed this in the last video, but to cut your circle exactly in half is a great little trick that I discovered with the Creative Memories trimmer, that you can align the curved edge right here in this little bumped out part of the trimmer. So the cutting line is exactly centered on either side of this. So this means you know that you're right on a true circle, you're right going to be right in the middle exactly, as long as this is resting down here evenly on these two little pieces. And so I'm just going to cut straight down the middle. And then I know that this is a 6-inch circle, and I'm going to cut right about 3 inches. And then I'm going to turn and use the curve again and line up the point with the cutting line. And here's my cat. And then I'm going to take the smallest circle and the blue blade. I'm going to use this piece because I don't need another cat. And I'm going to cut the head of the cat. All right. So here's the head of the cat. Uh-oh, I cut the wrong size cat. All right, we're going to back up because apparently I cut the wrong size cat. I think we wanted the medium-sized circle for the cat. Darn it, I thought I had measured all of these pieces out beforehand. So we're going to cut with the medium size, the medium circle, and do all those exact same things. And there's probably a way that I can go back and edit this video to correct that little mistake of mine, but I'm not going to, because mistakes are okay in scrapbooking. And because I'm just using cardstock and I got lots of it, it's easy to make that correction. All right, so the medium circle for your cat and the smallest custom cutting system with the blue blade. I'm going to be sure to close my blades back up because these blades are super sharp, and I have cut myself on more than one occasion because I forget to do that. Okay, so now I've got my little head and my little triangle from the medium circle with the red blade for my cat. I was going to show you guys with the corner rounder, but I forgot to get my corner rounder out, and rather than have you wait for me to dig for it out, I'm just going to use my scissors and round these corners. But this one will work with the corner rounder because you're really going to tuck most of it behind the grass. And then take your little cat head and stick that on the top, and you want to stick it all the way to the point pretty much, so that just right there at the point to do your cat head. Now to do the ears, take another of this little extra piece, and we're going to cut a 1-inch square. So this piece is kind of small, but I'm going to cut a 1-inch square. And there's probably a way to cut this with the trimmer, to cut it into fourths, but that's too fiddly for me. So I'm just going to take my scissors and go end to end and cut this in half. And then I'm going to cut one of these in half again. And these are going to be my ears. And I just kind of put them so that these two little ear pieces are going to make a V shape. Kind of like this, but a little bit of an expanded V. Like this, the two pieces together. And just go ahead and stick those down so that the ears are poking up. And just kind of fiddle with them to get the ears the way you want them. You can totally change the look of the cat by how you do the ears. So there are the little ears, and they're just kind of made that little double V shape on the back. All right, and then the last thing we need to do is the tail. Now you can just take your circle again and cut a piece like this to be your tail, or you can use the 12-inch decorative trimmer, and this makes a little bit more uniform of a circle. And You don't need a whole 12 inches. So just cut your little wavy lines and then scoot this over so that it's marked at the 1/4 inch mark, and cut the same wavy line coming back down. And then just take this little circle, little wavy piece, and cut one end off and kind of make it into a tail. And then you're just going to stick it on, you know, to be the tail. Or this piece, you could do the same. You could, you know, just trim that end and use that as your tail. So you have a couple different options for how you want to do a tail. I kind of like this one. I like the width of it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of tape right here on the back, and from the front side, kind of figure out what angle I want my cat's tail to be. And then I'm going to stick my little cat. I'm going to tuck him behind the dark green grass all the way down so his ears still show on the gray. So there's my cat. But you know, he needs a little bow tie. So just take your orange piece, and you can cut this with your trimmer or you don't need to, but I just cut a piece that was about maybe a 1/4 inch wide by maybe 3/4 of an inch. I just eyeballed it. And then this is kind of the tricky part, and it's going to be hard to see on camera because it's a little bit small, but I just folded it in half and hold it from the, let's see, move that out of the way. Hold it from the open side. I'm going to cut on the fold edge, just a hair little piece. So I've cut it like this so that when I open it up, it makes a little bow tie. And a little tape runner. I'm going to fold these over so they don't peek through. And now my cat has his little orange bow tie. And I did take this dot pen and just put one little dot kind of in the middle. You can't really see it, but it does, I think it just gives a little hint of dimension. All right, so we're almost done. The only thing left is going to be the birds. And for those, I used the Songbirds Punch. And I do try to clean up a little bit more when I am creating, but trying to not make you guys stay on here forever. You don't need to do a whole border with the songbirds. We just need 2 birds from here, from the songbirds. So I'm just gonna punch once with the songbirds. And then you do kind of have to fussy cut these just a smidge to get them the way you want. You could use all 3. I felt like 2 was plenty. I just kind of trimmed off the little wire that they're sitting on as best I could so that they just look like they're free floating birds. And then I put one of them so it's in front of the moon, because I thought that that made a kind of a cool little effect. So here's our little bird in front of the moon. Whoops. I need another piece. And then I put the other one facing the other direction. All right, so there you go. It was a lot of little steps. You could definitely modify this however you wanted. You could do more pumpkins. You could, if you had like the grass border maker cartridge, you could just use grass. If you have a cat die cut or a cat Sizzix or a Cricut, any of those things. But if all you've got is access to Creative Memories tools, here's a fun, very cute border. Does take a little bit of time, but I think was worth the time. Not that hard once you know the steps. I apologize for trying to cut my cat the wrong size. I did make a little cutting guide about how to how to make this. I wrote the biggest circle. I'm going to cross that out, medium. But if you want to have some written directions, you can pause your video, screenshot this, what the directions were. Oh, I actually need to change this one too. Boy, you guys, I was just not really on the ball today. But a little bit of creative license is okay. With scrapbooking, you can make it your own. So hopefully these directions will help you and you'll be able to create your own fun little Halloween border for your scrapbook layouts. Thanks so much for watching my videos. I appreciate all the feedback that I get. If there are more suggestions of things you'd like to see, if there's specific tools that you're interested in, please let me know, because I'd much rather do videos that you're interested in than just things that I am interested in. I hope you all have a great and safe Halloween and take lots of fun pictures to scrapbook, and I will see you again soon here on my channel. Thanks a lot and happy scrapbooking.